Hello and welcome to this Innova Systems webinar with me, Adam Rose. In this webinar, we're having a look at point of sale design within SolidWorks. So normally within a point of sale design process, it kind of starts off with some concept generation. And I'm working from, first of all in my webinar, the assumption is that the kind of initial sketches have been done and there's a general idea of the kind of direction that the project needs to move in. But I am working still initially at that kind of initial ideas phase when the ideas probably would have come into SolidWorks for the first time. And I'll show you first of all in this webinar some techniques you can use to actually build up quite quickly a point of sale design within the software, and some techniques you can use to improve the kind of speed of modeling within the software as well. So I'll switch over into SolidWorks first of all. The first thing we'll have a look at is creating a brand new model. So I'll go ahead and select my part template. And I'm just going to start initially by building up a first sketch on my top plane. And I'll just grab some sketch tools. Now to get those, I'm going to grab them from my S key. If you press the S key at any time, you can grab any sketch tools. There's a range of them then available. And then you can use the S key again to actually add some simple dimensions in there. By double tapping the middle mouse button, I can make the item zoom to fit, which then is a little bit quicker to get to the overall view. So once I've got an initial sketch like this one built up, if I go ahead and actually turn on Instant 3D on my Features toolbar, I can then double click to exit the sketch. We'll see then that it takes us into the normal model. You select the edge of the area you want to extrude, and then you can actually pick it up and just pull upwards to actually extrude using the Instant 3D toolbar. And then we can snap that to the dimension we want to go for. So that would be in the initial feature actually built up quite quickly. And then we can go through and actually build up some more features in here. So I'll just again start a sketch on this face by just selecting the sketch icon. This time I'll use that corner point rectangle from the edge at the top, and then I'll put in some sketch dimensions just to size it up at the size I want it. I'll then also measure it from the edge of the model as well. Once we've got that one built up, we can then have a look at extruding that shape as well. You'll notice when you're using Instant 3D, if you pick up any parts of the model and drag them upwards, you'll get an icon showing you what dimension you're looking at the moment, and you can adjust this to any value, and the model should automatically update without you having to rebuild it. And you can do that directly in the graphics area. What I'm then going to do is cut away an area within this design. What I need to bear in mind though is during this generation of this concept, I'd like to keep things separate. I'd like to have separate bodies for each individual section of the model. So when we're actually creating an extrude, normally merge results will be turned on, which keeps things joined together. If I untick merge results, I actually get two bodies shown in my solid bodies folder. I can then actually bring them through into a drawing later on and show them in a cut list. So starting a sketch on this face here, I'm then going to use offset entities from that face to actually offset by 10mm inside of the face, and I can adjust that to any dimension I want. That offsets a shape like this, and then what I can do is I can go ahead and come out of my sketch tool, and if I hit the S key again, you'll notice I get some different tools when I'm outside the sketch compared to when I'm in it. So if I select the extrude cut option, we can come in here and we can type in a dimension straight away, or we can simply right click to actually select the options of where we want to actually extrude up to. And I'm going to go up to next in this extrusion. And that'll extrude straight through the model. What I can then do is actually start building up the next section within this design. And to actually put that in, I'm going to grab from my S key a plane, which I'll just do from the corner up the top there down to the bottom edge. Having actually built that plane up, I can then start sketching on it. And I'll sketch something towards this top hand edge. Now what we need to bear in mind when we're actually building up a design like this, even though we're building it quickly, we still need to keep relations inside the model so things can update quite fluidly and we can make changes quickly. So if we use things like offset entities and convert entities when we're actually building up the model, we can maintain a reference back to an initial edge like this one. I'll do that on both sides and offset inwards from the design, we just tick the reverse tick box, and then we just end up with two edges offset by 10mm inside. And then what we can do between there is we can then just put in two simple lines which just connect between, just to make sure they've got the correct sketch relations. I'll then do simple dimensions between those elements just to hold them together, and also from this corner point here as well. I can then get rid of the excess, so I'll use the trim tool to do that, and we can just click and drag through the elements we want to get rid of to actually get rid of them from this sketch. What we can then have a look at doing is actually extruding this through the model. So again, I'll just double click to come out of the sketch and hit the S key, and I'll grab my extruded boss tool. I'm going to grab this, and if I right click, I can choose up to next, and I can actually choose for both directions and quickly enable it. With this one, like I say, merge results is turned on again. I'm going to untick it, and we'll go ahead and actually build up the next section. So, as we're building up the next part of the design, I'd like to put in a linear pattern which patterns this element down the model. If we grab this section of the model, you'll notice dimensions pop up. Now sometimes you won't always have a direction, an edge for example, that you can use for a linear pattern. You can actually specify to use a dimension that's pointing in the right direction. So we can use this dimension here, for example, as the direction for our model, and then just specify the spacing and the amount of instance we want to insert. Okay, and then we should see them spaced all the way down the design as soon as we update it. So there we have our initial idea. What we can then do is we can use the feature scope and just make sure that we select the outside of the model there, and that means that these items will still go up to next as the pattern is created if this item is selected in that feature scope. What it does mean though is that these items will merge together with this body. Okay, so we end up with those elements not being separated as they were before, but we'll go through and we can maybe remove that up to next end condition, or that merge results end condition afterwards. So I'll go ahead and actually draw the next element now on that face. And again, one of the things we might want to do here is actually offset from the inside edges of the model. You may have noticed normally when you offset entities, it offsets from the outside edges, but if you control select the inside edge, you can offset inwards. All we then have to do is reverse the option, and we can offset that by whatever dimension we want. I can then go ahead and extrude this element, so I just pick up my extrude tool and I can extrude that then up to surface. And I can grab the face on the other side of the model, and it will extrude up to that edge. If you ever see the icon I've got now next to my mouse, it means you can just right click at any time and it actually accepts the feature you're creating. And that will have joined those elements all together. Like I said earlier on, one of the things I want to do is actually separate them so that essentially I can go ahead and select each one of these items within a cut list within a drawing. So maybe that I want to just sketch on this face here. I could then convert entities on this face and also do the same on the inside edge here to convert entities, to convert the inside edge. And then what I'll do is I'll extrude that through the model. Now, rather than extruding it as a cut, I'll just do it as a surface. You'll see there's an extruded surface tool. It works exactly the same as a normal extruded surface. We can just select the end condition we're looking for from the right click list and hit the tick. With those surfaces created, we can actually use them to cut the model. We just go up to the Insert Features option and you'll see Split from there. Split is where you can actually go into the model and select a surface to cut with. I'll select these two here. I'll click Cut Part and then it cuts the part down into a number of different bodies. Now normally what we'd have to do is go through the design manually selecting the areas we want to keep, but we actually want to keep all the elements of the model. So what I'm going to do is actually rotate round to a side view where I can see every single body. And then I'll just window around the whole design to select it all in one go. Because you'll notice that it's a little bit difficult to actually go down on the left and select them all. So that's the best way to do it. We can then hit the tick, and that's selected all of those elements. I may then want to just hide away those surfaces that I've used to actually create those different bodies. So you see now it's actually gone up here from a 45, from 3 to 45 bodies, and we've got all the elements of these parts of the model created. Now if we're looking to create separate bodies one by one each time as we're actually going through the design process, one of the things we can do is actually turn on this weldments option. And that will actually ensure that when we're creating things, items are separated into different bodies. So it works quite effectively for the rest of the design process. So I'm going to start building up a section just here that's going to sit in the middle. Rather than drawing out the full sketch, I can actually pull in a sketch that I created earlier on. To make the design process easier, I'll go to my design library, and I've actually just saved a sketch into here as a block. So we don't have to always save the whole model, we can just save elements of it as a sketch. Dragging those into the graphics area, I can then attach those to the origin with that reference. We then just got to hit the escape key, and we can then start sketching and using that sketch just like any normal one. So I can just select, say, the sketch as a whole, go to my features toolbar and do an extrude from that. Now you'll notice because there's several options within here, it's not giving us a preview, but we can use this selected contours box to select regions of a sketch to actually extrude. So even when you've got quite a complicated sketch like this one, you can still get quite a lot out of it. I'll then just drag that up to the height that I want to get these elements at, and we can adjust that to any value just using the ruler there to snap to the value we're looking for. So I'm going to go to all the way up to 580 there. Okay, so let's just adjust that till we get to the right value. Okay, there we go. Once we're at that value, then we can select the sketch again from our left hand side, just grab it from the design tree, and then use the extrude tool again to select other areas and extrude those one by one. Okay, and again you'll notice merge results is turned off, so each time we create the elements we end up with different sketches being built. Okay, one of the things that's tricky about this though is the fact that it's all on one level. All this sketch is created at the same position. But if we're creating the extrude using this technique, we can actually select elements of it, define those at the size we want them. So I'm going to put this one at 18. And then we can actually put in an offset, which offsets them from the sketch by a certain amount. So I'll offset that one by 10 millimeters. And then we get a certain amount of spacing between that element and the rest of the model. So we can go in here and we can create a linear pattern just like we did before. We just grab the linear pattern tool. We can then select the edge we're looking to linear pattern based upon, just making sure we don't select anything by accident, and we can type in then the values we're looking to create the pattern from there. Rather than doing a feature though, if we're looking to pattern a whole solid like this one here, the whole shelf, we can then do bodies to pattern, which allows us to grab this element, and if any changes were made, like fillets were added to that, it will automatically propagate into all the new features that were created from the pattern. Okay, so that's pattern the items up. You could then make small adjustments to the position and size of this item by just dragging it. You could use the Alt key to actually then position it so that it's exactly the same height as maybe another element in the design, or again just snap it to a ruler which is about the right height. What we may want to do then is actually bring a bit more interest to the overall shape of the design. I want to cut this section of the model. The way I'm going to cut it is actually to build again another surface to help me achieve the shape I'm looking for. And the sketch I'm going to draw out is just going to be positioned with a 3-point arc from this front hand edge up to about this position, and we can then add in a relationship between that edge and the upright. And I'll just make the two of those tangent. I can then go ahead and actually put in the center line which is positioned from there. So I'll just pick up the references that I've already got there. Just building in some relationships between the top and the bottom edges of that to make sure they're all hooked in place nicely. And then just building some dimensions in to make sure I'm getting the right values come out from this. So that one's going to be 110. Let's try that again. And the top one, like that. Okay, we can then put it at a certain height, like so, and then use that to actually cut the rest of the sketch. So what we can do is, with this sketch built up, go to our surfaces toolbar and put in a revolve surface. That will just revolve around the whole design. But once we've created it, we can actually use the cut with surface tool to select this face, this surface we just built, and use it to select certain bodies in this feature scope. So we can go in and we can choose the areas of the model we want to cut. And we can cut those areas without affecting any of the other sections of the design. So you'll see then we can create quite an interesting shape on the front of the cabinet there. What I can then do is just finish off this model with some fillets and chamfers. So first of all, I'll just put a chamfer on this top edge, and we can just go ahead and hit the tick on that one. If you're looking to put in the same feature again on another edge, possibly on a different body, we can then hit enter and the tool automatically pops back up. We can select the fillet tool just by clicking on this edge to put it on here. Unfortunately, we can't put it onto this edge as well because it's a different body, but if we do want to quickly and easily move it across to that edge, we can just pick it up. As long as we've got Instant 3D turned off, we can just control drag that onto the edge we want to place it onto. And as long as we're sort of accurate with the placement there, like I say, it is quite a fine placement, so you do have to drop it in exactly the right area, but then you'll see that the item will automatically copy itself across. One of the items I'm just going to insert just to finish this design off is just a part that I've already created in another model. So we can go to Insert and Part to grab that, and the part that I'm looking to insert is already created just in this folder here that I've got. I'll just grab it from there. We can insert that and break the link to the original part, or maintain it if we need to. Then it will update from the original. But if I break the link, I get the full design tree created for this element. I can then go in and update it as much as I want. I'll set that on the top of the model, just with that make there, and then I can go ahead and actually use these constraints to hold it in place. So I could go ahead and use the back face of the model and possibly this face here, and I could just put a distance between those of 60. Okay, the last mate I'm just going to insert just to hold it in place will just be this one, but again at a distance of 300, just to place it right in the center there. And that just creates quite a nice looking display area first of all. So what I can do then is I can switch through to a different model which I've already created, which has just got a few appearances applied to it, which will then go through the process of actually producing some kind of photorealistic visual, which then could be sent out for a potential quote. So what I'm going to do is just pick out the existing model that's already created. You'll see that all we got in here is the actual product itself we're looking to display. A few appearances have been applied, and then we've also got the kind of case already inserted here. What we'll have a look at is inserting some decals like these, applying different appearances like we've already got on here, and overall just finishing off this design. So these designs and these colours that have already been applied to the model, they've just been picked up from the right hand side in the appearances section. And we can go down here and we can pick up any appearance to actually just drag that onto the model, and we'll just drag that onto that stand there, just applying that at the level we want to actually sit it on the design. So I'm going to put that onto that body. We can also copy existing appearances if we just right click and copy appearance, and we can then paste those onto other areas of the model. So I'll paste that onto that body. Looking at other areas of the design, we may want to apply a decal like we've got on these sections, so that in image basically. What we can do is we can actually open up this part to actually apply that. So I'm going to open up that on its own. Okay, it'll just take a second just to make sure I got that there. So let's just try that again. Just open part, there we go. And then once I've got it opened, I can then into the decal section, which is on the left there, just right click to add a decal. And we can then browse through our machine to find the decal we're looking for. So I've got a decal that I'm looking to insert, just a fact sheet about the product here, and I just want to insert it onto that face. And just to get the mapping right, we can actually fit the width and the height to selection to actually fit it to the size of that face we've inserted it onto, which just makes it quite easy to place and insert on there. What I can then do is rotate the model around and insert another one of those logos. So in this section of the design, again, I'll add a decal and I'll just browse to find the right one. Okay, so again, it can be any image, just make sure it's not too large. This one here is a PNG file. The nice thing about a PNG is that if we've got any white background on the image like I've got here, we can actually go in and we can use the default alpha channel to actually remove that white background. And we can then use those same mapping options to actually fit it into the section we're looking for. We can also rotate it and use the options on the left to actually get the scale and rotate it manually into position, but I think I'm fine with how it is at the moment. So what I'll do is I'll hit the tick on that one, and that will then insert that logo. Okay, we can then switch back quite easily to the assembly model and have a look at the overall design. So one of the things I want to do is just copy and fill up these shelving units here. So you'll see I've got the actual item inserted already. I can just control drag that to create a copy of it quite easily. And if you're looking to put in some constraints quite simply within the design, you can just use the Alt key and your keyboard just to, your mouse just to drag the item into place. And you can place some constraints between the model and the design, and then just pull it out and rotate it possibly with the right mouse key and add some more constraints. So the next one is going to be between this face and here, and we can easily flip that with the Tab key. The last mate I want to add is to keep this equally spaced between here and the edge of the model on the other side. So I can select a face and just use the mate icon. And you'll use one of the more advanced mates for this one, so I'll use a width mate. And that can just go between the edges and the faces I want to sit it between. Okay, and that nicely just places it in the center there. Just finishing off the design again with a linear pattern. We can do a linear pattern in an assembly as well. We just pick up the edge we want a linear pattern based upon and select the component we want to pattern, and then just put in the number of the spacing and the number of instances we're looking to create, and making sure the direction is correct, and we can just hit tick. Okay, so with it all built up like that, what I can do is I can go ahead and actually produce some kind of photorealistic render from this design now. So if I'm looking to produce some kind of photorealistic output, one of the first things to do is actually create a camera view, and I'll do that from this display button on the left hand side, and I'll just switch through to the camera and right click to add a camera, and that will give me a view of the model, which I can then just rotate manually just to kind of pull it into position. You'll notice there's a bit of perspective on the design now, and we can just manually zoom in with the shift key or control to pan just to get it nicely positioned inside that kind of area we're looking to render it. Once we've got it in the right place, we can also put in other effects like depth of field to make certain items go out of focus if we want to. But if we're satisfied with what we've got, we can hit the tick. Or if we want to, we can adjust it on this left hand side using the actual camera and pulling it around the design as well. Okay, so we can then switch to that camera view. We can then apply a scene to the model, and I'm going to go for that orange scene. I think that would work quite well. And then what we can do is actually have a look at how that render is looking on the design. So we just go to our render tools and do a preview render. It should only take a few seconds just to preview on this model. It will run through and it will just generate all the kind of imagery for this product, bouncing the lights off different areas to give us a representation. If we hover our mouse over the areas we want to render quicker, we can actually get certain areas to render quicker than others, if there's a particular area of interest, that is. Okay, so you can see that's looking fairly good. There's a few adjustments I want to make. I want to make this area here a bit brighter, and I also want to light the product up a bit more with a bit more lighting. So I want to make this first of all to look a bit backlit. To do that, I need to go to my decals and just find the correct one, which is this one here, and I can just edit that. Now if you're looking to get a kind of backlit display, you can just go to the illumination settings and just increase that luminous intensity, which just gives it that kind of backlit display. So you'll see it's already a bit brighter. We can then go ahead, and if we're looking to make simple changes to the lighting without actually adding new lights, we can go in and we can actually edit the existing environment to just rotate it round, and we can just rotate this around the model, and you'll see the lighting on the model is actually changing as we're rotating it round. I'm going to rotate that round to around about there. Okay, just to make small adjustments to that. That should be about right. Once we've got it sort of spot on, we can go ahead and do another preview render, and that should render out and give us a nice sort of preview of the model. Okay, so there's the sort of preview of what it looked like. What we can then do from that is we can go ahead and actually render that out. I'm not going to render it now because, like I said, it will take a little bit of time to actually render the final render. But I can show you what the kind of render will look like on the design. So here's a few examples of what that will actually come out like. So we've got a few simple renders actually just done up there. Okay, and there's that image for the backdrop. Okay, so we can quite quickly get a sort of render out of this design. All right, once we're done with this section of the model, we can then go ahead and I'll switch back to the other design we had open in the background. Now you'll notice we've got this cut list inserted. This was inserted when we created the weldment. Inside of here, we can actually update this cut list to create cut list items, and it groups them together. So we've got all the items that are similar, like these ones here, all in the same group. You'll notice if we right click on these though, the cut list properties for these, we don't actually have any kind of description inserted because these are neither sheet metal nor weldment items. So that's why we've not got anything in there. But in SolidWorks 2013, what we can do is we can actually select those and create a bounding box for them. Creating a bounding box allows us to go in and it then creates the properties for us. We don't have to go in and measure them manually. It just creates a box that fits over the model, which then gives us a nice description for those elements, which we can then actually bring through into a drawing. If you do go through and actually name them one by one as well, we get nice names appearing in there as well. So if I just switch back to that painted example of the model, we can have a look at that one because I've actually gone into there earlier on and actually named all of those. Now, you just go through a simple process of actually pressing F2 on there, but I'm not going to do all of that now. Okay. Now there's no need to actually do this process, it's just a bit neater when it comes to actually creating a drawing. Okay, with this example you'll notice in the left hand side you've got the cut list, and each item's been named one by one, and in the cut list properties now we've got the same kind of properties we had before. So we can quite quickly create a quite nice drawing from that. If we just go to File, Make Drawing from Part, we can then create a new drawing based upon a kind of template file we want to use. And we can just drop that in with an isometric view first of all. So we just grab the isometric view. It's a little bit small at the moment, but we can quite easily go to that properties menu and adjust the scale there. And we'll adjust the scale of the overall model. We can then take that cut list we looked at a second ago and actually bring it into a drawing like this one. So we can go ahead onto the Annotations Toolbar and just grab our weldment cut list, which is usually intended for sheet metal and weldment parts. But the nice thing about it is we can actually make use of it for this element. So we can just insert a cut list. Now, at the moment, it's brought in the description for us. We've got the item number and quantity. The length field is not quite so relevant for us. We could maybe change that to something else like the cut list item name or something like that. We then got each one of the items named one by one, and we can just make small adjustments to that table and fit it into the corner. Okay, so we'll just size that down nicely. Okay, that's looking good. And then we can just double tap to auto space those, and again just size that to the size we want it. Then we can insert some balloons around the design. So maybe we want to insert some balloons that are looking at this element here. So we can just select that view and auto balloon, and it autos balloons based upon the drawing view we've got. And we can space those around the model and just grab those and pull those in. Okay, with those created, that's looking fairly good on the model. What we can then do is insert maybe just one of these elements as a drawing view. We might want to just separate one of those down and just grab them one by one. We can actually do that by inserting a relative to model view. If we select the design, we can then select the part of the model we want to insert a relative to model view from, maybe this one here. Choosing whether we're doing an entire model or a selected body, and just choosing what will be the front and possibly the right view on this model. Hitting the tick, and then it inserts that item. We can then insert it using maybe a custom scale, which is slightly larger. We can then treat that as any normal drawing. We can go in and we can project out from that. We can go in and produce a number of projected views and go in and actually detail those up then. So using that S key again, you'll see the contexts have changed once more, and we've then got different tools. We can then use the dimensioning tool to give us a few nice dimensions for that one. Okay, and using that rapid dimensioning, we can quite easily get a few quite nice dimensions created from this design. Okay, so we go through that process, just creating one or two dimensions for the model. Okay, so once we've gone through that process, we actually created drawings for each one of the elements. That'll be looking fairly good. We'd be tending to get towards the phase where we're actually looking at producing an actual design from this. So we'll just switch back to the part model. If we're looking to actually take all of these bodies and actually create an assembly from them, the last step would just be to right click and create an assembly. We can save bodies to do that. We notice we have to go down that list and actually select the items we want to save one by one, but we can also auto assign names, which just gives them the name that their body had. So we can go in there and you can see that they've all been named quite nicely based upon the names I'd already given them. So once we've got those created, we can then auto save them and create an assembly as well, and that will just save those into a new location. I'm not going to do that now, but like I said, that's just the final step, and then once we've got that created, we can then go ahead and actually build up a final sort of design for the model. Okay. What I've done for this session is I've actually saved away a version of this file, saved as an assembly, earlier on. You've got to bear in mind that there's 53 bodies here, so for it to go through and save each one of those, it can take quite a while to save each individual body. So what I'm going to do is to open up that assembly that I created earlier on using the Save Bodies command. You'll notice that all the appearances have been stripped off for us. It's quite useful because, like I say, we don't need those anymore now. We're going through to the actual manufactured model. And what we've also got in here is an external reference from each one of these part files. So if I was to open up one of these, for example, you'll notice that external reference gives us all the kind of features, but just with this stock feature on the left. That stock feature takes all of its shape from the original part file with the external reference so that it links back to the original, and if any changes are made, it will update automatically. So we end up with quite a good model then to work from, build upon, and then make a bit more detailed in certain areas. And we can use any of the kind of standard tools that we would use within a normal part model to just build these up and give ourselves the actual sort of manufactured model from there. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a good idea of the kind of things you can actually achieve with SolidWorks when it comes to point of sale design. There's lots of different areas to kind of look into, and effectively what we've got there is a model which has been built up very quickly for any potential quote. So thanks very much for watching. What I'll do is I'll point out, like I say, we've got a few future webinars coming up on staircase design, architectural metalwork, and plan and site layout. Thanks for watching.